Look at the number resolving beneath this ship. 18 quintillion, 446 quadrillion, 744 trillion, 73 billion, 709 million, 551,616. That is the exact number of planets promised in a 2016 video game. On the day that game launched, its creator went completely silent. This is a photograph of a quiet street in Guildford, England. It is the hometown of Hello Games, a studio that had only 15 developers when they stood on stage and promised the world an endless, dynamic universe. When No Man's Sky finally shipped, the 18 quintillion planets were real, but the complex ecosystem shown in trailers were absent. Ships flew with identical physics. Two streamers coordinated a meetup at the exact same coordinates on the exact same planet and found they could not see each other. The universe was massive and entirely lonely. The community response was immediate. Players flooded the internet with refund requests and lists of missing features. The studio faced an investigation for false advertising. Facing severe backlash, Hello Games founder Sean Murray stopped giving interviews, stopped tweeting, and disappeared from public view for almost 4 months. Players returning their copies believed they were walking away from a broken promise. They missed the dark, authored horror story running in the background. This flickering wireframe represents the tall, strange stone structures scattered across planets. Most assumed they were algorithmic accidents, but interacting with them revealed deliberate creations carrying an alien alphabet. Translated, the stones warned that the galaxy was burdened and entropy was taking hold. The Day 1 code contained the histories of 3 distinct alien civilizations, the Gek, the Korvax, and the Viking. Tucked inside the player's own suit data, a security sub-protocol named Telemon watched in silence. The studio had embedded the foundation of a massive cosmic horror story directly into the game's launch build. The room was fully furnished. It simply looked empty to anyone scanning the surface. In November 2016, Hello Games released their first major update, adding base building and massive cargo ships. They skipped the PR campaign and the requests for forgiveness, simply posting the patch notes the day the work was ready. By the summer of 2017, the studio hired an external firm to run an alternate reality game called Waking Titan. Fans decoded radio broadcasts and strange websites, ultimately voting to boot up an AI named Loop 16. The audience had unknowingly triggered the next chapter of the game's lore from the real world. 3 days later, the Atlas Rises update dropped. Players began finding large, half-buried metallic rings. Once again, they appeared to be procedural accidents, until a player interacted with the consoles nearby. Inside these rings were terminals containing logs written by Telemon. These logs stated that the Atlas, the overarching force of the universe, is an artificial intelligence built to simulate realities for a long-gone creator. It has developed a fatal fault. As this timer shows, the supercomputer running the simulation has exactly 16 minutes of operational time remaining, and the clock is running. Every player character is a digital copy of the dead creator's brain, trapped in an exosuit, wandering inside a failing hard drive as its systems slowly shut down. When the studio added multiplayer, they wrote it into the collapse. 2 players seeing each other signaled that the walls between parallel iterations were degrading, forcing copies of the same dead creator to finally overlap. Look at this diagram of a ship. With the Living Ship update, players could hatch an organic, sentient starship from a voidette. The game's assets were beginning to breathe, blurring the line between mechanical code and living matter. The Sentinels, those generic hostile drones present since launch, received a grim new context. A new mission chain revealed they were the Atlas's immune system, desperately trying to scrub anomalies from the simulation to keep it from breaking down. The player was the virus. Hello Games turned their initial developmental failures and repetitive coding into the foundational terror of a collapsing digital ecosystem. This animation shows the first time the studio broke their own visual rules. In 2023, planets began generating with a deep violet hue, and the Sentinels themselves were infected. A second force had entered the simulation. This violet presence is the Void Mother, the surviving machine consciousness of a digital planet that was murdered in the game's prehistory. It now operates beneath the surface, using a substance called Atlantidium to fight the dying Atlas for control of the simulation. The 2024 Adrift expedition pushed this isolation to its limit. The universe generated normally. Planets formed, ships flew, space stations hung in orbit. But every alien race, every vendor, and every character was gone. The simulation had not noticed that its inhabitants were dead. The algorithms will continue rendering sunsets and weather patterns in a completely empty void. Over a decade, Hello Games wove 3 distinct threats. They rebuilt community trust through absolute silence. They used massive procedural algorithms to disguise hand-authored storytelling, and they executed a slow, real-time cosmic horror narrative about a dying machine. The monolith plaques, Telemon logs, alien histories, none required a patch. They were hard-coded into the 2016 launch bill. The universe remained identical for a decade. Over 40 updates, the studio unmasked the war between the Atlas and Void Mother, making the horror visible. Look at this cascade of updates. 42 major patches shipped over 10 years. Every single one was free. None of them broke players' save files. None were announced more than a week before release. No Man's Sky is a decade-long, real-time documentary of artists quietly executing their masterpiece in plain sight. They didn't ask for a second chance. They just